said, we'll be fine then. I'll be up there.
Because I love halibut, and I'd like to go south
How you doing, brother?
fishing.
Well,
because I love south.
part of our problem is Dan's mom will have to ride the wheelchair a lot of places because she can't walk so far. So if we love
ready.
it,
I'm a
I'm
little late.
hoping we'll get to go back and do some
I'm a
other
little
things.
behind.
Like I would love to do that train ride too, because
That's right.
Danielle and
We,
Matt, we love
I was
riding
trying to go
the
for the
train.
song last time I was killed it, but it's okay.
So-
Nobody's in there.
So I would like to just go.
Killed it in
this
a bad
week.
way. Some people kill it in a good
That
way,
too.
in a bad way.
Well, you know, there's Iceland, you could go and take, as far as getting cool and taking, Iceland's another place you could go to, something like that.
The mountains up in the
Yeah,
Swiss
imagine.
Alps.
That
I
would've been
love
choppy.
just going.
We couldn't in the section.
Well, give me that excuse. I just want you to
Pay
go
for
back.
everybody.
You know what, you're right. Y'all come on, y'all can at least get to the entrance of the airport and see us wave goodbye.
I'll just wave you off. We can come pick you up when you're back. That'd be,
That's right.
that'd be
I'll
useful.
tell you, it'll be just like you've been there.
We would actually be useful for once.
They're on the camera.
Hello, young lady.
How are y'all? Good, how are you? Good. Sometimes I give you a hard time. So your niece or granddaughter, she runs.
Good.
She did good, because our kids were there yesterday, but it's really, she runs cross country. Not track. Yeah, XC, not track, not track, she's XC.
Christy Dabbs, right on time.
I loved it, I was like, okay, gotta give her,
It's actually
oh,
right on
because the kids
11.
give me.
It's not 70,
Well, my-
100 degrees outside.
Oh, I know, our kids ran yesterday in that Ridge
Very
Fair
good.
Invitational too.
Yeah.
Is there coffee back there?
So I was like, that was our first race, I think
Yeah.
high school and middle.
Scott only
ran.
thinks of himself.
So,
I know, that's all.
Look, I make a pot, nobody drinks it.
There's cake
I make a
cups.
so
cup,
I'm
everybody will.
assuming,
I know,
I
that's the same.
would think,
That's the same for me.
I think Jonathan's running, they have his little boy, he's a good runner, I don't know how he did.
Oh, where did y'all find this?
You stole my
You took it
thunder.
home.
No. I was gonna tell you, I found the basket if you wanna shame everybody into giving us money this morning. But it was between the table and the refrigerator on the floor.
She said, my granddaughter did really good at track, and I go, that would be cross country.
Just crossed up.
Exceed,
You look good,
because
man.
like they get tore up if you
I wonder who
know
put it
say it's
there.
track, and it's really cross country.
I wonder
I
who
was
put
thinking
it
of
there.
Tommy at the
I
Higgins
guess
house.
My kids all fussing, I'm always getting in trouble for something.
All right.
I bet it was a kid.
We will be on page 10.
Here's my shame money, I'm gonna go
There you go.
back.
That's right. Guilt him into it. And we'll be on page 10 of your ESV scripture journal. If anybody needs one, they're in the box back there.
There's no more in there.
There's in here.
There's no more in.
I think there's a couple that somebody hasn't used yet.
Well, I gave,
Okay, Nancy.
Nancy one this morning.
Okay. Everybody glance around.
Hunter has
This
it written.
right here, I don't yours, Lynn?
No, mine's right here.
Tracy, how many you got?
I mean, Tracy's got several, her notes are in this with her name. Busted.
Yeah,
I'm gonna let you guys
My
know.
says Dorsey.
The last time
Oh,
we did
that's
this,
Dorsey's.
John,
Nobody's
and I'm
using
gonna do
this.
Tracy's notes, and they're better than mine. They were good. No, they're very
Yeah,
good.
here it is. Nick.
Keep very yours. So at the end, what you want to do is just grab Tracy's.
Hey, somebody can have mine.
Mine has, I have pictures in mine, because I draw pictures.
Now, Kevin, do you need one too?
Kevin, here you go.
There you go, I'll put it back in this box.
No, this is mine. But I'll let somebody use it.
So we're on page 10, that's right. Very good. I told Tara that today's lesson is very good, so we'll have to see. I don't want to give anything away yet. Well, hey, Tara.
With no talking in, we're trying to get on the class here.
All right, so we will see.
He said it's a good one.
Yeah.
Gotta get into it.
We'll see. Got some good content. Previously in Esther, we've been walking through chapter 1. We took our time. It took us 3 or 4 weeks there, and we went to the citadel in Susa, in the Empire of Persia, and we met King Ahasuerus, the Medo-Persian king, and we saw how he had all this splendor and pomp, and he was in charge of these 120 provinces, these 120 governors. They had this military banquet for 180 days. Then he has this 7-day banquet for the citizens of Susa. This grand finale, he calls his queen out, and she refuses. Ahasuerus turns to his wise men, and one of his wise men, Memucan, makes this clever proposal. He sets the incident in this wider context for the king, and he says to the king and the other 6 members of the inner court that this will break down the very fabric of the household. This will cause anarchy on the most basic level in the family, and moral anarchy. And they come up with this new royal decree, this new edict. And in the edict, there is this bill of divorce, which banishes Vashti from him. And if she won't come when she's summoned, then she'll never come again. Then they use this as an example for any other wives who dare defy their husbands in the entire kingdom. And one of the highlights I hope that we were able to point out is some of the humor in the first chapter as we look at the character of King Ahasuerus. We start, he's the world's greatest monarch. He's rich and he's powerful in his splendor and pomp. I love to say that. All of his excesses and all of his riches and generosity with his resources. And then we end the chapter, he's trying to maintain his dignity. He's trying to cover up the defiance of his wife. And he ends up passing this edict which can't be altered while he's drunk. With his wise men, he looks like a fool. And then at the opening of chapter 2, he may have already started to regret his decision. And for a Jew to read this, let's just say 100, 200 years after this, it is just a foreign world. Like, what is going on in this? You know, this has nothing to do with how to be a Jew. This has nothing to do with Yahweh, our customs, our traditions, our laws, our values, our prayers, our psalms, nothing to do with that at all. Where are the promises of Yahweh? Where are, where's the presence of Yahweh? Where's the promised land? Nothing about the law, nothing about the Torah, nothing about anything that makes any sense to them. For the dispersed Jew living in a foreign land, this chapter does not relate. Where are your people in this story? You've left us. You've abandoned us as if we are an orphan. We'll open with prayer and then we'll get into today's reading. Dear Lord, we thank you so much for helping us to be in here this morning, to set aside this time to get into your word, for you to open up your word to us this morning, reveal yourself to us. We ask that you challenge and change us, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. And now a quick disclaimer before we get into today's subject. Today we have the asterisk of mature content. So I told Tara, I was like, there's no way we're not going to at least have a teenager in there today. I know we're going to, you know? There you go. All right. So at some point I'll just cover you. You just stick your finger in there.
I watched that movie.
You watched the one night?
King.
Yes, I started watching it last night.
Yeah.
Yes, pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
The way it looks is really what I wanted to show, how it shows Susa, and you can see it.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's
To me, he was easily manipulated.
Yes, he's walked all over there. By
What was the name of it again?
One Night with the King.
One Night.
It's G-rated.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Today's content
It's on
is not
Netflix.
G-rated. No, I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, it was good.
I watched it on Amazon Prime. Is when I watched it
You
on.
might need something to
Yeah.
watch on the plane.
When did you watch it?
One Night with the King.
I know, I said when.
Last night.
Oh.
Mhm. I said, what do you think about that part? You said.
Amen, Tara.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess
So
so.
back to my content advisory. The only way to read this story as a fairy tale is to gloss over the details. This is a Bible study which highlights the details. Thus, we have some mature content today. So we're going to start off. We're going to read the first 11 verses. We're going to try to get through the first 14 or 15. Through the 18. I'm just going to start back at verse 1 again. We covered this first part last week, but I'm just going to, I feel like it includes it well. After these things, when the anger of the king Ahasuerus had abated, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what had been decreed against her. Then the king's young men who attended him said, "Let beautiful young virgins be sought out for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom to gather all the beautiful young virgins to the harem in Susa the citadel, under custody of Haggai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women. Let their cosmetic be given them. And let the young woman who pleases the king, let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. This pleased the king, and he did so. Now there was a Jew in Susa, the citadel, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem among the captives, carried away with Jeconiah, son of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried away. He was bringing up Hadassah, that is, Esther, the daughter of his uncle, for she had neither father nor mother. The young woman had a beautiful figure and was lovely to look at. And when her father and her mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. So when the king's order and his edict were proclaimed, and when many young women were gathered in Susa, the citadel, in custody of Haggai, Esther also was taken into the king's palace and put in custody of Haggai, who had charge of the women. And the young woman pleased him and won his favor. He quickly provided her with cosmetics and her portion of food, and with 7 chosen young women from the king's palace, and advanced her and her young women to the best place in the harem. Esther had not made known her people or kindred, for Mordecai had commanded her not to make it known. And every day Mordecai walked in front of the court of the harem to learn how Esther was and what was happening to her. So there's a lot of backstory there going on to help us understand our main characters. We have our 2 main characters are introduced there. The third will be next week. And last week we'd already discussed Haggai. He's the royal eunuch. He is a castrated slave who is in charge of the royal harem, the area where the women are kept. He's in charge of their daily cleansing and their purifying. He makes sure they're clean and well taken care of. The ESV uses cosmetics, and for me, I'm just like, they're using L'Oreal and Maybelline, but that's not what they're using. In verse 5, though, today we start in, now there was a Jew in Susa. And I love that introduction. I feel like it's very, it's like Noah or Job's introductions, There was a Jew in Susa, the citadel, whose name was Mordecai. And then they give a quick genealogy. He's the son of Jair, and he's the grandson of Shimei, and the great-grandson of Kish. He's in the line of Benjamin. His family's from Jerusalem. And they would have been listed because they would have been well known. That would have been the purpose behind it. For me, and this is a little controversial, this is back to my own disclaimer of these are just my own opinions. The names of all these men that we just named this is their only mention in the Bible. There are other men who share the same names in other books, Ezra, 2 Kings, and all kinds of different places. And your Bible may even have a footnote saying, hey, this guy's in 2 Kings. For me, they're only here. That's just me, though. I just feel like the timelines kind of mess up, and I'll go into that more later. But they're all named because they're known. And just the name of Kish alone would point to he's in the line of Saul. Yes. I thought you were waving. I thought you were like object. And I was going to let you go ahead and object. I'm just fixing my glasses. Anyway. But they're all in the line of Saul. In 1 Samuel 9 and 16, different times we talk about in the line of Saul. He's a Benjamite. There's already a man named Kish way back then, That's not the same Kish. Just throwing that out there. It's okay to have 2 different guys, same name, Not that weird. But he may have claim to royal blood. I think is one thing you can get out of this. He of course is one of God's chosen people. He inherits the promises of the Israelites. But just that he was listed as he's being taken away. His ancestors are with the king. Could be shown either which time he was taken away or that he was with the king. I kind of like that he's somewhat royal. One of my other notes there on verse 6, which is a very argued verse, really. Verse 6 starts off with who had been carried away from Jerusalem among the captives. Now, for me, my own opinion and interpretation is the who is Kish. It's not Mordecai. If Mordecai were carried away from Jerusalem in the time of Nebuchadnezzar, he'd be like 120. So I don't think that's the case. That's just me. Do you want to think that?
What verse?
Verse 6. It starts off with taken from who. This. For me, it's Kish.
Well, because he's also the Benjamite too.
Yes, that's right. I mean, all of them are, but yes, no, that's exactly right.
But it's right after his name, so you would think that it would just be him.
For me, yes. I don't look at it like, it just depends, you know, but like for me, it's not, he's not 120, that's silly. He's out there, he's active, he's going up to court every day, he's very savvy too, we're gonna get to that. But anyway, Kish, his great-grandfather, he lived in Jerusalem when it was besieged by Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians. Second Kings, Second Chronicles is told all throughout the Bible. He had been carried away, and then his people had been taken as slaves from Jerusalem to Babylon, and now his great-grandson is in the citadel of Susa, which would have been very normal. All the Jews who were taken to Babylon, as the Babylonians are defeated by the Persians, they would have then been in the capital of Susa. Very, very typical, very normal. The way they list his ancestors as being taken away with the king of Judah points to his royal bloodline. I've already said that. Mordecai, man, Mordecai's name is very important. You know, in the Old Testament, you can't put any more emphasis on somebody's name. Their name is who they are, you know. His name is a Persian name, and it would have been a super dishonorable name. He would have been saddened, I think, to say it in public, you know. It's an old school name, but it means servant of Marduk. And Marduk was a god. So he would have been a Babylonian god even more. So he's an old god. It's very similar to in Daniel. Daniel gets the name Belteshazzar. Belteshazzar, Bel, protect my life. This other god, protect my life. And as you can see in the book of Daniel, he does not accept that name on any level. He goes right back to saying Daniel does this and Daniel does that. So it's very strange that Mordecai, he just takes that name, you know, and he wears it. So many all throughout the Bible, you know, Bel is talked about. Bel and Marduk are, Isaiah, Jeremiah. They've all got the dealings with, as the Jews get out and they're influenced by these other foreign, tribes and foreign nations, they fall into their ways, and that would have been some of the gods that they interacted with already. But he's required to go by this name, very similar to like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Shadrach is name refers to the moon god. Meshach is Aku, a different god, and then Abednego is a slave of the god Nebo. So as these Jews who are devout wear these names, they wear them in disgust, you know. If you're a Jew, you follow Yahweh, and you're forced to be called the servant of Marduk in public. I just feel like that can't be, it has to be underlined to some degree. It's just so sad to me. One last item with his name is he is Mordecai, son of Jair. And all of his ancestors have very Jewish names. They have Jair, Kish. I think it's pretty interesting. Maybe they still keep up with their own names in hiding. Maybe in their own group, they still keep up with their own names. When they go out, they call themselves this. And maybe he was known as Mordecai. You know, he's much more public with his. I don't know. But he lists himself as Mordecai, never gives another option. Whereas he lists his ancestors with very Jewish names. In verse 7, he was bringing up Hadassah. That is Esther, the daughter of his uncle, for she had neither father nor mother. Which I feel like it's a very confusing relationship that they had. We'll get into that. The young woman had a beautiful figure and was lovely to look at. And when her father and her mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. Another version, which is from the Tanakh, is he was foster father to Hadassah. That is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. The maiden was shapely and beautiful, and when her father and mother died, Mordecai adopted her as his own daughter. I feel like that walks it through a little bit more basic. But Hadassah, she's introduced here. Her Hebrew name means myrtle, which is a very beautiful imagery if you're a Jew. You know, myrtle. Yes, our most familiar thing will be our crepe myrtle, which is a very common, tree here. Very often in the Old Testament, especially during the time of the prophets, the myrtle replaces the briars and the thorns in the desert. If you go through this period, the myrtle will come to some degree. It's used by Isaiah, Zechariah. It's to show the Lord's forgiveness and acceptance of his people. So her name is very, it's got this redeeming quality to it. It would have been, a very beautiful name, And of course, the myrtle branches are still used during different feasts, the Feast of Tabernacles, where they throw them down, different things like that. They signify peace and thanksgiving. But her Persian name, unfortunately, is very similar to Mordecai's. Her name's Esther, which is in refer to the star, or Ishtar, which is a Babylonian goddess. It would have been kind of like the equivalent of in Roman times, their Venus is Ishtar. Same storyline, same basic goddess. So again, I like Hadassah. I would try to call her Hadassah. I would bet anything Mordecai called her that, but in public, she's Esther. And they're first cousins, which I don't know if you picked up on that. It's very strange, really, their relationship. Mordecai adopts his orphaned cousin and raises her. Hadassah's father is Abihail. Abihail is Mordecai's uncle. So, they're the same generation. That makes sense, unless there's some kind of a weird gap, and you're like, 45 and you have a kid kind of a story. Anyway, and in normal terms, in my head, the way I like to look at it is, Larry like that too, that's right there, Larry. Anyway, Hadassah, 45, oh, hold on, now I got that. Hadassah, I like to look at it like 15 to 20, anywhere in that range is fine. Any younger than that makes me uncomfortable, so that's why I like to hold on to 15 to 20. 15 is pretty uncomfortable, honestly, but anyway, just trying to scoot it up there. For me, I like Mordecai's in his 30s. I like that. He's very smart. He's well connected. He has connections all over Susa, and he uses them. And we'll see that he is in a position of power for who he is. He's very influential. So we'll get to him later. But and so we see this adoption, and adoption is a key theme throughout the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament. And I feel like it's a little foreign to us, The responsibility of death is extended out past your immediate family in the Jewish world, And I'm not saying that some of us here wouldn't, be willing to do that for some of our, cousins or brothers or sisters, kids or whoever. But it's a little bit less common. It's not as accepted in the same type of way of responsibility to your family, and so it's a little different than what we get. But it's very normal. It's not any kind of thing weird or anything. I feel like so many times people read Ruth and then they read Esther, and they kind of mix those two a little bit. There's nothing weird between Mordecai and Esther. Just throwing that out there. Israel has adoption practices that are based in Deuteronomy. So many passages in Exodus and Psalms and Jeremiah. And adoption is the model for the relationship between God and his people. So keep that in mind. Adoption is a huge part of the Bible in general. In the ancient Near East, death is prevalent. Adoption keeps with the customs, keeps your family intact, and they're all about including their extended family. They work as a whole, crazy cousin, Jethro, he's in with you, he's on the bus too, you're going together. Anyway, both of her parents are dead, and she is an orphan. And I was reading a little bit about orphan mentality, which is a different thing for me. But talking about orphans, there are so many psalms that deal with orphans and the idea of being orphaned. And of course, in John 14, Jesus says, I will not leave you as orphans, talking to the disciples. But I was talking about there's some characteristics of an orphan, and I'm not saying these apply to every orphan or even Esther, but I do like kind of thinking about them a little bit and trying to apply it to her, because, man, she's very patient and waits for her time. And but an orphan does not know where his or her next meal is coming from. An orphan doesn't know much about his or her identity or family history. An orphan has no security about who will take care of him or her. They have no one to cherish or treasure him or her, and they lack a family to lean on for help or comfort. And those are just some of the things, and I'm not saying any of those things really apply to her, but they could have, She was right there with Mordecai, maybe from, whenever her parents passed away. We don't know any of the details of that. It's just assumptions. But You know, maybe that's in her head. Some of those things are in her head, you know, and I've got to do this by myself to some degree. But Hadassah the orphan was beautiful and lovely. And they use that very strange, it's this double epitaph there where it's this, she's beautiful and she's lovely. And it's used one other time in the Old Testament, which is very strange. In Genesis 39, talking about Joseph. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge. Because of him, he had no concern about anything but the food he ate. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. It's the exact same double use there. They translate it handsome because he's a boy, but it's the same words, and it's very much the same situations, you know, to some degree. Everybody that Joseph encounters, he turns it for good, you know. He finds favor with them.
I feel like lovely when we're talking about her inward, not her
Yeah, no,
out.
that's fine. Yeah.
I thought
That's
that
good.
too.
No, I like that. I even like if you said one of them's for the outside and one of them's for the inside. That's
Yeah.
okay too.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah, but she is the myrtle of the desert who will replace the briars and thorns. Mordecai is her foster father who raises her as his own. And then after that, after the writer explains who they are, he goes right back and picks up from verse 4 and goes on to pick up the narrative. The result of the royal divorce decree is that many young women are taken to Haggai at the royal harem, at which Haggai is very impressed immediately with Esther. And again, like Joseph, they find favor in the eyes of everyone they encounter. Immediately, as soon as she meets Haggai, she finds favor with him. And also, it's similar to Daniel. It's another good one, because here Daniel is in this Persian court. Daniel 1:9, and God gave Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the chief of the eunuchs. So almost the exact same situation there. Very similar, but
I wonder why. I wonder if it's just coincidence or.
I think they got the spirit on them.
I mean,
Just throwing that
yeah,
out there.
definitely, but
Mhm.
it's like they have, it is, it's
It
the
is.
spirit on them,
Yeah.
but like in the same, they have all these same little qualities,
Mhm.
so.
They
That are
have,
more than just the spirit, they have the whole package.
they do. In this one person,
I want the whole
the
package.
future of the whole nation is on their shoulders to some degree.
Yes.
It is true. In all those different situations, they have so much on them. It's something. But the author of Esther doesn't say it like Daniel or like Joseph, that God favored them, that God's got his hand on them, all that type of language. None of that. He underexpresses the sense of God leading them or anything like that. He may be implying it, but he's not saying it. And the text here, like I said from the beginning, is very secular. There's no mention of God. God may be involved, but the writer is not mentioning it. I feel like that's something to keep up with. As a Jew, you're reading this, you're like, where's Yahweh in this? How am I supposed to turn this into a prayer or a song? Not yet. You know, one of the things that I like there is how many were gathered. And this is an opinion. It says many young maidens, fond young maidens were gathered. Josephus tells us that it's 400. 400 is quite a lot. But Patton, which I don't know if I'm down with this or not, but this is another view, is because this is a 4-year period that's about to take place, he believes that there's roughly one maiden for each night, and that would be 1,460 maidens. So somewhere in between 400 and 1,460, however many you want to put your number on, that's fine. I don't know if I like 1,000-ish. We'll just go with 1,000 in my head. You can go with however many you want to. But she and the others are taken into custody, and immediately she impresses Haggai. He does what he can to get her this special attention, this extra treatment. He gets her and her 7 attendants the best apartments. The 7 maidens with her are her attendants. So she's already got this super special thing going on, you know. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness. This is the KJV. She obtained kindness with him, and he speedily gave her things for purification, and such things, with such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens, which were meat to be given her out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maidens unto the best place of the house of the women. So she's singled out as the favorite. She gets her daily cleansing and purifying. Haggai gets her this portion of food. He orders, the NLT says, a special menu for her. And for me, a conservative Jew's, well, hold on a second, like, what happened to Daniel? Like, Daniel stands up. He's like, I'm not eating your food. I'm kosher. I'm not eating any of this stuff, you know? Why is Esther not doing that? She's just in there eating the food, you know? Which is true. I feel like that's pretty good. She's in there eating this unclean food of the Gentiles, you know? She's told by Mordecai in the next verse we see to hide her nationality and to hide her family background, and that's what she does. It's not time for that yet. Esther had not made known her people or her kindred, for Mordecai had commanded her not to do so.
That's why she's not making a point about the food.
Right, that's exactly right. She's supposed to hide that. That would give her away. Well, I can't eat that. Why can you not eat that?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, definitely. She doesn't say anything. Proverbs 13:3 is always connected to that. You may have a footnote, well, you won't in your scripture Bible, but in your normal Bible. Whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. That's applied to that very often. Ahasuerus doesn't ask her lineage, so she's not being deceitful. Mordecai, he doesn't have access to her. Man. So Mordecai, he goes daily to the court. Another really good definition there is this outside yard without walls. And his love takes him there daily, is one translation I read. The writer is showing the love that he has for her. He's still trying to get information on her. He's still trying to keep up with her in the only way that he possibly can, you know. I read this one thing where it's talking about people who are held as prisoners or inmates often share information outside of their own, you know, whatever. So, hey, can you tell me about Esther? You know, hey, you know anything about Esther? You know, so that would have been very common to see how she's doing, you know, and they're showing him love because he's completely separated from her. He's obviously prohibited from entering the harem. So we're going to pick up there in verse 12. We're going to get through the next couple verses here. Verse 12 starts with the process. Now when the turn came for each young woman to go into King Ahasuerus, after being 12 months under the regulations for the women, since this was the regular period of their beautifying, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with spices and ointments for women. When the young woman went in to the king in this way, she was given whatever she desired to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. In the evening she would go in, and in the morning she would return to the second harem in custody of Shashgaz, the king's eunuch who was in charge of the concubines. She would not go into the king again unless the king delighted in her and she was summoned by name. D.A. Carson says these verses highlight the inhumanity of polygamy. It's very foreign to us, these verses. One in particular there. They go through this 12 months of beauty treatments provided for their marriage preparation, is basically what they're doing there. And the way I see it, it's more like widowhood rather than marriage. You know, it's each girl undergoes these cleansing, purifying treatments. You know, in Persia and India and Arabia, they're all well known for their perfumes and their smells and their aromatic perfumes. And many of these customs that they would have done at that time of preparation are still used today in parts of Iran and northern India. The plucking of eyebrows, the removal of body hair, painting of the hands and feet with henna. Anybody know henna? Anybody know that? It's like fancy little squiggly calligraphy type thing. Painting of nails, facial makeup, and so on. All these different things they would go through, in preparation. 6 months of oil and myrrh, and 6 months with spices and ointment for women. When the young virgin would go into the king in this way, she would take whatever she wanted with her, because she was not going back. It's a sad way to look at it. She would never again get to go back to Haggai in the harem of virgins. She would be taken to the second harem, the concubine harem. Shashgaz is in charge of the second harem. In the evening she would go in, and in the morning she would leave for the concubine harem. And so the whole process comes down to this trial by sexual intercourse. That is what's referenced here. There's nothing short of that. They don't go in and she sings him a song. She would not go into the king again unless he summons her by name. And if we say even on the conservative side, if 400 people go in, to remember your name is almost impossible, you know? Unless you're just like, you have a very common name. No, I don't know. Another couple of translations is, unless he delights or unless he's pleased in her. The NLT says she would never go to the king again unless he had especially enjoyed her and requested her by name. I mean, it's a very harsh situation here. It's very foreign to our ears. You know, we don't live in this type of environment, and these things are very strange to us, but that is exactly what's going on here. So you think about that concubine harem that old Shashgaz is in charge of. You've got these emotionally deprived 399 at least women all in the same place. It's crazy town. I don't know what to say. I mean, Shashgaz is like, he's a saint. He's in heaven for sure. Anyway, I mean, you just imagine you're just in there, probably forever. You know, it's yeah, exactly. They're treated though as if they never have to work a day in their life. And I'm not trying to ease it up. I am just trying to say though, they are living in royalty. They live in the royal palace. It would have been a life of luxury. You would not have ever been out pulling weeds or, you know, any tasks of the field or working the field in any way. You would have been fed every meal the rest of your life. You would have been a kept woman in some ways, but in other ways not. Anyway, the first thing I think of though is like, you think it's 1,000 women, you know, 1,000. You think about all the men in those, you know, in those cities, in those provinces who like, you just took, well, yeah, and she's gone now. You just took the prettiest girl in our city. You took the prettiest girl in our city. Like all of them, they're all gone, never to be seen again because they're in concubine play. It's crazy. It's a crazy scene.
Does he ever call back to them?
Only if he was pleased in them, you know? Now, who's to say that he wouldn't walk through there and be like, see you Saturday, see you Sunday? I don't know, you know? I don't know. Just saying.
Warrior prison.
Whatever your name is.
Yeah, I'm gonna make my rounds one more time, you know?
Well, I mean, I didn't know if it was just for like this time while he's trying to find somebody, or if like even after he gets married, if he's still.
This is the kind of modern day bachelorette show.
It's way crazier than that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Christy, this is where you're supposed to be on your male chauvinist.
I mean.
But what
this is
happened
really
to all
sad,
the kids?
oh, the kids they're royal. I mean, they're brought up
So
in the
they
royal
have a
house.
bunch of kids that was.
You're exactly right. They would have been princes,
Yeah.
but they wouldn't have been kings.
Yeah.
If you're the mother of a concubine, I mean a son of a concubine, much like Ishmael and, you know, Genesis, you're the outs.
So there was a big daycare there too.
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%. They would not have been treated as if they were the prince, but they would have been taken care of.
But did he decide to keep everyone there? Are they always sent to the other?
You know he had to send some home. I was actually thinking that some of them didn't make the cut, you know? I even feel like as some of them came in the door, they might not have made the cut, you know, like, I don't know though. It's
So he
1,000
wasn't picking
please.
them to begin with, it was someone else.
He didn't pick them, that's right.
So it's like,
But it said they go to the second harem from.
They do. As they leave, they are not
I
available.
think they do that because they lose their virginity.
Yes,
Right?
that's-
That
yeah.
had to have been a
They do.
very
Now,
big
somebody
deal
got
that
the back
time,
door.
so maybe
Hey,
the other men wouldn't want us there, right,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I think they wouldn't have got to
At
that
that time.
situation if they weren't beautiful. Just know that.
but then like, do they lose their freedom? They can't go anywhere else?
They have lost their freedom. Yes, 100%.
I mean, that's sad.
No, it's super. It should be super sad.
But
It is.
they're also living. I mean, they're being fed every day. They're,
100%. They don't have to worry about anything.
But
They've got
But that's what they
slaves-
know.
Slaves are fanning them and feeding them grapes.
What did you do?
I mean, it's true.
But
True.
still, I mean.
Yeah.
No,
But
it's
that's
so-
that was a better life for them in some ways than the alternative. of not knowing where their next meal is gonna come
It's like
from.
selling your soul. I don't know.
Maybe
You don't
some
have
people
your
are cut out
food.
for it and others are not.
My thing is you have to
Uh,
remember, women are considered
That's what I'm
a
saying.
commodity, they're a
Right.
second class,
Definitely.
so they don't get a say, I mean, so for them, they're like, this is a better life than what I have,
A lot of them
but
say.
still,
It's
But
security.
Not all of
it's
these are
security.
orphans. Like,
No, no,
yeah,
none of
these-
them.
so
Just,
for me,
just
they
adults.
could have came from great families.
Absolutely, could be
Like-
rich
They
family.
Yeah.
could have,
Right.
they could have
Yes.
left their person.
Could be
they
the
really
governor's
loved.
daughter.
Yeah.
Could be,
exactly,
no,
yeah.
100%, yeah. And one thing, we've been watching the shows on Sunday night.
But see, but like, in case, like say it was the governor's daughter,
She's still a woman.
yeah, I
You're
mean, she's
saying
still,
that they could not just say, well, I'm really not at you, king, either, and walk out and just
Absolutely.
let you
No.
go.
I mean,
You'd be
but
dead.
still,
You'd be killed.
They had
You
a-
could say either, I don't want to give my virginity over to you. You had no choice, it's rape.
It is what we would consider today rape, 100%.
I can tell you, they probably weren't trying very hard though, you know what I'm saying? Like.
Are you talking about trying to get away?
Good point, Sarah.
Matthew, somebody's out in the hall calling your name.
but my thing, but for most
He's
of
in the
I
them,
don't
house.
understand what Sarah's saying.
They probably didn't help make it fun, you know what
Oh,
I'm saying?
yeah. No,
They
but-
would have been like, I'm ready.
Please, somebody else talk.
but what I was gonna say was, is like,
They're
it
selfish,
still
yeah.
gives them, they're in a better position, even if they were rich, because now
They're selfish.
they have a secured
They
future
do, they do.
and stuff like that. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, he's got this harem of all these women, now there must be a pecking order, now that might be difficult, because,
I look at it even like, and it affects the entire family, obviously, but let's just say you have a character, Joseph, let's just call him, and he has a daughter, and that's his only child, and like, man, like his whole world's just, and he's too old, or his wife's passed away, or different situations.
yeah.
I'm
But
just
it's kinda
confused
like-
where it goes past her to her kids, to their kids. Where does it go from there?
Now I feel like when she's dead, the kid's out.
Okay, that's
I
right.
think so.
Because they've been in royalty, they probably
Yeah.
even been.
They were
He may be
born
like
into that.
a lieutenant in the army,
Yeah.
or that kind of a thing, to where he has a chance for something,
They just create a whole new family tree.
Yeah, but what about, my thing is what about all the girls, like, do they just, like,
Do
the
they get-
concubine has a daughter, what happens to that daughter? Does she become a slave? Does she get,
Prevalent back then. I don't
or
think
do they
were
marry
having
them
kids.
off, do they marry them off to different,
Well, a concubine would, because that is a half royal kid.
Right.
It would have been a
Still think-
privilege,
yeah, but do they, my thing is, do they marry them off, like, to, like, somebody, like, do they get married off to somebody of prevalence in the court? I mean,
I don't know.
the
They're not
concubine-
100%,
Yeah.
One thing I liked, talking about, a little bit of free will in this conversation is, in that movie, One Night with the King, Hadassah it's her goal to go back to Jerusalem. That's what she wants to do. There's people going back, and she wants to go back. And the night that she decides to go back, they catch her, and they take her,
But we
and,
don't-
which is just a little bit of, kind of like watching The Chosen, where you add your own
Yeah,
little
yeah.
flavor into it, So she was trying to go back, or whatever. But,
What makes you think though about all the different scenarios that aren't recorded? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, totally, because there's so much, really. If you,
each one of them would have their own story, Yeah, no, it's super sad. And then we'll try to get through
Could
these.
you imagine 1,000 different stories even? That would be horrible to have to hear or listen to.
We'll get to, we'll try to end real quick on these last three, or these three words are the saddest words for me in this whole chapter. Verse 15. When the turn came for Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his own daughter to go into the king, she asked for nothing except what Haggai, the king's eunuch, who had charge of the women, advised. Now Esther was winning favor in the eyes of all who saw her. And when Esther was taken into King Ahasuerus into his royal palace in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign, the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she won grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king gave a great feast for all his officials and servants. It was Esther's feast. He also granted a remission of taxes to the provinces and gave gifts with royal generosity. Oh, I mean, and I'm just going to say, the whole time he speaks in this satirical, mocking kind of a way. And when he talks about this and he says, and then when her turn came, I mean, it's like the worst for me. Like, I know he thinks that's funny, but man, that's like, it doesn't translate to me in 2023, And then it gives her real name there. Bath Abihail would have been a very Hebrew name, which just means the daughter of Abihail. That's the only time it gives it. And Abihail is, of course, Mordecai's uncle. So that's their relationship there. She enters with nothing, which is this is a factor. You can take in with you whatever you want. So you could take in jewelry, you could take in art, you could take in something you made, because you've got all this time on your hands. You can write a song, you can whatever, you can make a painting, whatever you think the king would like, whatever maybe explains you to him, or maybe what you think he likes. I know he likes, the blues, so I'm gonna sing him a blues song, or whatever it is. It shows their judgment, or their artistic sense, or maybe a part of who they are. That's what you take in there with you.
But it's also like all of your belongings, because you're not going back home.
Yes, I don't even know if you have really any belongings. I think you're supposed to probably wear their clothes that they give you,
But anything like you said, anything you've acquired.
Or anything special to you.
Yeah, because you're not going back home.
You're not going back home.
Well, it may be more like a personal gift to him or
It is more of like a, this is
Yeah,
me.
okay.
Yeah,
This is
more of a
either you or this is me. That's
a
what they're trying to
personal
say.
gift to him or something. And in this case, she doesn't take anything except for what Haggai advises, because Haggai knows
He knows.
what the
He
king
gives her the inside info. That's
info.
exactly right.
So she's gonna take whatever pleases the king.
Mhm.
So, but I think maybe like their belongings and stuff probably just get transferred over to the other harem, like they have slaves that
Yeah.
transfer it over.
Oh, she left that necklace. Anyway.
You know what I'm saying? But it's more like this is the one gift or the thing that would impress the king.
Right. That's what their thoughts are.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's been 4 years. And scholars will tell you it's 3 years and 10 months is technically.
That's new to me. I didn't
Since
ever know
Vashti
that.
to this point when she goes to Ahasuerus is 3 years and 10 months. It's midwinter, it's cold, it's wet there. She gains favor and grace in the eyes of the king, just like she did with Haggai, just like she did with the others. In verse 16, we know now that it's 479 is the year. It's the 10th month. It's the 7th year of Ahasuerus. The king loved Esther more than all the women, and she won grace and favor in the sight more than all the virgins, so that he sat the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Keturah is the word there. It's the Persian loan word. It wouldn't have been a Hebrew word. They would hardly even know what it meant. And so he uses their word. That's the same one as Vashti's. He takes that Keturah and he puts it on her head. It would have been like a circlet. It wouldn't have been, I don't know. It would have been small, kind of like a tiara type of thing, I think. The NET actually translates that a high turban. He puts the high turban on her, which I don't know. But and then there's a little comedy there with in place of Vashti. Again, a little bit of the strange humor of the situation. In Esther's honor, another banquet's thrown, and there's a remission of taxes. So all the provinces of Persia would get a day off, and you get paid by the king. No work. Scholars historically say, though, this is very interesting, I found, that this would also include a get-out-of-jail-free card, because the jailers aren't working that day. So, anytime the king would have one of these type of days, if you're in jail, so what you want to do is schedule that to where that's going to, no. But you get out of jail for free, I don't know. But, so again, a feast is thrown, and this one is in her honor. That's what we'll pick up next week. So, all kinds of stuff happening there today. Anybody have any thoughts, angry outbursts? I feel like it's just so foreign to us, It's just a world we don't understand. A polygamous leader who has endless power, And that's just the way it is. There is no revolting against that. Hey, hold on a second, I'm the governor of this province. That's my only daughter, you know? No questioning the king. You know? Yeah.
It's really hard, it is really hard to wrap your mind around, because it is so foreign, but.
Even if you wanted to be as conservative as you want to be, and just say they picked one from each province. Chapter 1 tells us there's 120. So there's at least 120, you know, bare minimum, you know. A lot of people look at it like there was the 1424 because it ties in with everything we've been told about King Ahasuerus in the first place. He's got too much of this, he's got this, all these things are huge numbers. So of course it's a different lady each night, you know. I don't know.
Well, I kind of feel sorry for the king.
You're the only one. What?
That would be horrible, having to go through, and then you find somebody you like. Well, I'm sorry, maybe next month I'll call you back or whatever, but I gotta go through the other 1,500.
Decision.
That would, I mean, that.
I don't really consider all that, I don't think he considered it a problem. I think he had a party for
No, because
a
you haven't
while.
got to hear all this.
I'm not a party animal, I don't get.
You think as
I
he
was
starts
wrong.
down the list, you know, because he wouldn't wait until the very last one to make the decision. I wouldn't think, you know, I would think, all right, this is the one, here's the decision.
I mean, it didn't make it out like she was last.
It doesn't say.
No,
But he
last
picked her
week.
then.
Yeah, he picked her then, that's true.
Yeah. But then you're married and you're the queen and you know about these other 399 ladies who are concubines and I mean, just the whole situation
Their
is just,
children and their.
you know?
Yeah. And then you just go back to Vashti, who could, if you can't, you gotta walk a line, cause you might end up in the gala.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Or
Even if she's mad at you, she says, well, I guess you're heading to over at see Shaspanaz or whatever his name is. And now you're gonna pick out another lady.
Oh, Shaggy,
Yeah,
okay.
well, exactly. It's not happening here, buddy. You know, I don't know. It's very strange.
It's not like slavery, but I can't help but.
It's
think-
similar.
It is
I can't help
It's
but think
similar.
about slavery.
No, it's-
and like
it's similar.
about, yeah, the women and like how even like slave owners a lot of times had affairs or, you know, with their, slave, the young slave
100%.
girls.
I was afraid he was gonna lock him and throw in the lines then, just to get rid of it.
No, they use the lines in 100%. 100%. Two things. One is, I forgot both of them. I'm trying to say both
We're
of them.
saying slavery, I don't know if that's true.
Slavery. No, it is a level of slavery. You would have, in this time, and especially in Persia, you would have not let them been educated. The women would not have been educated, you know, because then they're gonna come up with all these ideas of, you know, this and that and all these kind of things, you know, so you would keep them away from that, you know. Another thing I'll say in closing is all of these things, the entire Persian Empire, all these things are outside of God. This is not the Bible condoning any of these actions or any of these things. This is the other people. This is them. This isn't us. We're looking for us here. And we just found us. We're this little orphan girl. But like, we're not all these crazy things. So,
Oh, that's what I wanted to.
I do want to express that. There are horrible things that happen in the Bible because there's horrible things that happen in the world. You know, it's not,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
not.
I mean,
It
you
does.
think, oh, well, there's us, Esther, and yet she's with the king, and she just, you know, but she didn't have a choice. Like, there was no choice in this
No
matter.
choice.
Like, you didn't get a choice,
No.
so.
So, next week, Mordecai discovers the plot, and it gets good. We have some
And tell
good.
me again, I wanted to write down what you said Mordecai's name again.
It means servant of Marduk.
of Marduk.
M-A-R-D-U-K. Yes, he is you can Wikipedia him. He is a long history. Marduk. He's also called Bel by the Persians. B-E-L. He's not Baal, the Canaanite god from way before this. All those guys, the Sumerians. All those guys are dead. But he is Bel, B-E-L, which is M-A-R-D-U-K, Marduk, which is the same God, same entity. Next week, as we get into talking about some of the older religions and stuff, we won't talk about Baal, but we'll talk about some
And
other good stuff.
Esther, he called her,
Ishtar is what
yeah,
that one
but
is.
I mean,
Jewish name,
Her-
it does.
Oh, yes.
Well, yeah, but
I got it down there. Her real name is Beth Abahel, which just means daughter of Abahel. That would have been her very Hebrew name.
And it's heartbreaking too that she already knew pain and a lot of tragedy
Yes.
because she lost her parents, both
That's right.
parents.
That's right.
Which I know was not common back then, but. I do love the way in the Bible adoption is
Adoption is
so,
key.
because salvation and what Jesus did for us
That's it.
is, it's just such a beautiful picture of adoption.
Mhm.
That's what, I mean, so, there's so many
The New
things about
Testament
the
is
Bible,
adoption.
yes.
Yes. Mhm.
I didn't really think about it being, until you mentioned that, so many things in the Old Testament with people, anyway.
Very good. All right, well, we'll quickly dismiss and we'll head out. We'll have a quick prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you so much for bringing us in here this morning. Thank you for helping us to have this time that we set aside to get into your word. We ask that you bless our service this morning and use it for good. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Okay. But could you,
Do I feel sorry for the king?
Oh,
You're on an island on that one, buddy. Good job. I don't know.
He's just thinking all the men and women going, bah, bah, bah.
yeah, that's right, there's two sides.
Here comes another one in.
Drive you crazy.
Y'all do complain about it a lot, about the whining.
I apologize.
I played with him long enough to hear him whine. He was like, go on, gotta go. All I keep
Too
thinking,
much for me.
I keep thinking of the movie where the guy goes,
That's
it's
the
good
way
to
it
be the
is. Too
king.
much fun.
Right.
What's the name of that movie where the king goes, it's good to be the king?
I have enough easy.
That's funny. Yeah, he's something, I guess. I don't know.
You know, she's right.